What we want to talk about with John today is going to be his experience leading up to the point where he's in now. So we all know him as the person that runs Sell Better by JB Sales. He started Barrows sales training back in the day. I was just giving people your history in case they needed to get that fill in. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
You good?
Yeah, I got you now.
Okay, we back. So like I said, what we want to focus on is John's leading up to this point. So I want to talk about his time at DeWalt and his time in the copier industry specifically. I have two other people that are really well known in the space that were in the copy industry. Dale Dupree and Larry Levine both came from the copier industry. John had his hand in that as well. John, let's start at the copier level and then move our way back to DeWalt because I love that part of it too. But what were like the biggest takeaways for you throughout your time in the copier industry, and share some stuff with us?
Shit. I mean, everybody complains about commodity sales and that type of stuff. If you haven't sold copiers, you haven't sold a commodity, right? Because I mean, look, 45 pages over 42 pages a minute, ooh, you know, because it scans the email type of shit. Like nobody cares. I think the biggest thing I learned, and actually it's very relevant to today's world of design thinking, right? And how design thinking is being applied to sales as far as the bottom up approach and really understanding the customer before presenting a business case to the executives. Because what I did was apparently I interviewed really, really well. So actually I'll give you a quick story on the interview process. And if anybody knows, this is a fun one. So I was interviewing I was selling DeWalt and I was interviewing for copiers. And you know me, James, I don't have a very good memory, nothing, right? And so
you forget shit immediately, yo.
Always, right? And so like I'm wearing my piece of shit, like Men's Warehouse 3-piece suit, right? I'm going in all nervous. And I thought I was meeting with like a VP, just one VP of sales, right? And I show up to this room and there's 6 VPs of sales sitting across the table from me. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I sit down and they say, all right, John, thanks for coming in. And they slide this copier sheet, like the spec sheet across the table to me. And I don't know if you've ever seen a copier spec sheet, but it's like font. Like it's like this little, right? And they were like, we want you to go outside. You got 10 minutes. We want you to come back in 10 minutes and sell us this copier. And I was like, what? So you know me, like I don't read a ton and I don't have a good memory, right? So I sat out there I took the copier spec sheet, I threw it in the trash. Like I sat outside for 10 minutes and I came back in and they're like, what do you got for us? I'm like, I don't know, to tell you the truth. And they're like, excuse me? I'm like, well, I got some questions for you. And they were like, well, all right, fine. What are your questions? I'm like, do y'all use copiers? And they're like, yes. I was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with your current copier situation? And they were like, 7. And I said, well, what would make it a 10? And they're like, well, if we had machines that duplex, that scan to email, and that were, you know, got us a better price, you know, as far as the click-through rates, right? That type of thing. I was like, okay. Well, I got a room around the corner that has a whole bunch of copiers in it, like our demo center that has copiers that duplex, scan to email, and actually have, you know, faster click-through rates. You guys want to go check them out? And I stopped, and right there, like they all were like just absolutely silent. And the guy goes, could you give us a minute? Right. And I walked out and I come back in and they go, all right, so when do you want to get started? And I was like, whoa. I'm like, I don't even know if I want this job right now. I'm like, you all just put me in an impossible situation. And I just kind of came up, right. I'm just reacting to that. I'm like, there's no way I could have done what you were asking me to do. And they were like, no, that's exactly what you should have done. I was like, huh. So I came in apparently at a pretty high level, like from an expectation standpoint. So they put me in a territory that only had that had been ravaged. So it was like 5 reps in 3 years. It was a government account. So it was government. So not only did I sell copiers, I sold copiers to the government, right? State and local, which is
massive right there.
And there's no negotiations in that case. Like your price is your price. You are on contract and that is your price, right? So with that, I'm like, okay, well, all my friends were in the private sector flipping copiers almost immediately. You know, they'd go into somebody's place. Oh, let me flip you that one copier. I'd go to the Secretary of State, Treasury, and all that other stuff. They were all in one building, one Ashburton Place, downtown Boston, right? And every one of them would kick me out, like almost immediately. They're like, yeah, whatever, Xerox kid. Like, we're going to see another one of you in 3 months anyways. It doesn't matter. And I was like, damn. So I was like, I can't sell anything to these people because they don't trust me. So what I did was I spent every day, and I walked from our office in 150 Federal Street all the way down through downtown Crossing up to 1 Ashburton Place. And I would start at the top and I would just move on my way down all day, every day. And whoever would talk to me, I would talk to them. And I was just building relationships, basically kissing hands, you know, kissing babies, shaking hands, that type of stuff, spending time with like non-decision makers, but learning about their how their copiers were set up in their office and what kind of use cases they had for their copiers and how old certain copiers were. And I was gathering a ton of information for a period of time. And 6 months into it, my boss almost fired me. So he comes in because I hadn't produced any results. And he was like, dude, like, I thought you were some big swinging, blah, blah, blah. And I thought you were going to come in here and crush it and blah, blah, blah. I was like, look, back off. Right. Give me you guys have burned this territory to the ground. Nobody trusts us here. Give me some time and I'll fix this, but get off my fucking back. Right. Now, probably a fireable offense the way I reacted to it. I mean, he probably should have fired me because of how I was kind of a jackass back then, with less of a filter than I do now. And yeah, he admittedly, before, he actually said he was scared of me, like physically threatened by me, even though I don't really consider myself a physically threatening guy, but he was about this tall, and so I think he just was always like scared of bald head and that type of stuff. So it was just a weird relationship I had with this manager.
Yeah.
And but then about 9 months in, what I had done was I put together a whole game plan. I put all these click-through rates and like analog copiers to digital copiers and walkthroughs and mapped out their entire office spaces. And I came with binders to all my clients. And I said, hey, can I get some time just to show you what I've learned over the year, over the past 9 months of your organization? And they were like, well, sure, fine. And so because I had built those relationships, they gave me that time.
Lots of information.
And I walked them through and I said, well, here, this person's walking all the way around here, but they do it 10 times a day. So it's killing their productivity. And this thing is almost dead anyways. And if you flip to digital, you would do this. And if you actually consolidate these printers and put them over there, and it was like cash and checks. I mean, every one of them was like, yeah, let's do this, sign. So I then, like, about 10 to 12 months into my job at Xerox, I walked in with 3 huge binders of contracts that were like over $1 million each and dumped them on my boss's desk. I was like, see, and then and he was like, damn. And that's when they capped my commission. So that's the other thing, is like they had an uncapped commission. But then after that year, they capped my commission at 300,000. So anything over 300,000, you didn't get paid on. So I was like, what? I was like, so I got these couple multi-million-dollar deals here that I could sign today, but if I ain't going to get paid on them, I'm sorry. I ain't signing them. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to sign $295,000 deals month over month over month over month.
Yeah.
So even though you as an organization could get all that revenue right now and all those locked in contracts right now, because of the way you've capped my commission structure, you're going to get it drip through and I'm going to get mine.
Yeah,
and that's
it
after
forces the seller to change the way they sell so they can max out on their compensation. And the people that take the hit in that are the companies that these sellers work for. Because if they just uncap it and let sellers run wild, there's no telling.
I never understood capping commissions. Like you are a bad business company if you cap commissions, because that means you're like, oh, you're thinking about it the wrong way. You're thinking, oh, we're giving this sales rep too much money. That's the exact wrong way. Like, the best sales rep in any organization should be paid the most amount of money, should be paid more than the CEO, period. Now, the CEO's total comp with the, whatever they get paid out at the end of the year with the bonuses, that's where the CEO gets paid. But as far as like yearly income, the best sales rep in every organization should be the best paid by far, because if they are making it rain, that means everybody else is benefiting. And if you
that's the person that carries the others, so that those average sales reps can pull their weight and do what they do.
Forget about them. Talk about the people who are delivering. Talk about the accounting people. Talk about the non-revenue generating roles. The only reason they all have jobs is because the sales comes in the front end and allows us to pay all those all those salaries and everything else.
This forces me to take a big step back and ask you, do you think that companies, it would do well for them to just stop everything that they're doing right now in the middle of a year and just move into a conference room and say, all right, everybody at the department head level, let's focus on how we feed to sales, because that's what's going to keep everyone here. And just start pointing the finger at sales for everything that you do. How does it lead to revenue?
I mean, look, I don't think, every company's situation is differently, but here's how I advise a lot of people who are looking to start who are in sales and want to go to other companies. If the company is not top-down sales focused, the company most likely will fail. Okay. If it's an engineer who starts the company, I wrote this blog post a long time ago called The Engineer, or the Founder's Dilemma, whereas like and it's usually an engineer founder who starts a company with a really cool product, right? And they create it. And we've talked about this, that sales is the transfer of enthusiasm, right? So anybody who says they're not in sales is wrong, because all you got to do is ask them to describe something that they really are passionate about, and you'll see the sales come out, right?
Yeah.
Is that transfer? So you have an engineer who starts a company, right? So they're super passionate about it. Then they go talk to friends, families, and fools, like that close circle who give them really good feedback, right? And a couple of people might even buy from them at that moment. And so they think, oh man, this is easy. Everybody needs this. Like, this is Chris did it. I'll actually call Chris Merrill out, like our chief growth officer. Literally, when he started Thrive Networks, he said it to me one day walking out of a sales meeting. He's like, man, I don't understand why sales is so hard. Everybody needs what we do. And I was like, you serious right now? Did you just say that? Right. No, I think Chris has obviously earned quite a high respect for sales, because, with that, what happens is they think, oh, anybody can do this. So they hire a VP of sales or some sales rep. They give them a territory. They give them a quota. That sales rep does not have the passion. They do not have the understanding of the solution. So they go out there and they fail usually, or they're not really pushing it as strong. So then what does the engineer founder do? Oh, I knew sales was, a nightmare. Let's do marketing, right? Let's go all in on marketing. But then eventually it hits that wall and they got to bring sales in again. So if the organization looks at sales as a necessary evil, I think that's a failed sales, or I think that's a failed organization. I think
we have to have it because it's required, right? That's the wrong way to look at it.
But if you support sales from the top down,
let's build an entire organization around it. So that we can maximize on the revenue generation, but also the amount of people we can impact, because the revenue comes from those individuals that are doing the outreach and impacting strangers. That's our job as salespeople. I talk about it all the time. Talk to strangers. That's your job.
Look, people, again, I've said this again, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Sales is not about convincing anybody of anything. If you are trying to convince somebody of something in sales, you're doing it wrong. Sales is about helping people solve problems or achieve their goals. That's it. And if their goals aren't big enough and their problems aren't big enough, why are we having this conversation?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the different verticals and the different industries of sales and how human beings function differently in those industries. Now, the copier situation kind of taught you that, well, reputation matters, and I have to earn trust, and I've got to learn everything about the industry and how to talk to these people in an appropriate way, and that takes time and below the power line conversations. But you came from a DeWalt sales situation too. Now, you were a guy driving around in a big DeWalt truck with DeWalt
Ram pickup truck,
pulling up to construction sites and essentially saying mine is better than yours.
To a certain degree.
Talk to me about this situation and what that looked like in your sales career at that time. Very transactional in a way.
So yeah, it was like we were fortunate. This was the first time that DeWalt, so for everybody knows, Black & Decker bought DeWalt a while back, and DeWalt had this new concept of a swarm team. So this was actually my entree into sales. My background's marketing, my degree is marketing, but when I got into the real world and I was looking at marketing jobs, I was like, I don't like any of these. Like, I didn't like the idea of the harder I work, the same I got paid. You know what I mean? To me, I've always been, the harder I work, the more I should get paid. So that's why, even though I didn't know I ever wanted to be in sales, I had that DNA in me.
Sure.
And so all the jobs in marketing just didn't look right. And then DeWalt hired very specifically out of University of Maryland, because they're right down the street. And it was under sales, but it was really event marketing. And what we had to do was we had to drive around a Dodge Ram pickup truck with a bed full of tools, looking for construction sites. So we had the whole Northeast section. We had Connecticut all the way up, New York, and the whole thing, right? And I just had to drive around and look for construction sites and roll onto a construction site. And to your point, basically see what they were using and try to convince them to use the DeWalt version of whatever that drill, whatever that thing was. And so we would go on teams and stuff like that. And inevitably, all of my team members, they would almost always go straight. They would park right at the trailer. They would go straight into the foreman's office, right? And they would try to pitch, because we were all taught, hey, here's like we did the training first. It was product training. So we would open up the drills. We'd look inside the drills, and these gears were metal gears, and look at the Makitas. They're plastic, and that's why ours are better, and all this other stuff. And again, terrible memory. So for me, like, none of that stuff really sank in, and I'm like, does the drill fucking work? I'm like I don't really see a difference. I'm using this drill and I'm using this drill, and they kind of sound this, they feel the same to me. Right. And so I'm like, I don't know if I can go feature function on this. Right. And DeWalt is not like DeWalt were cheap. DeWalt was pretty damn expensive.
Definitely up there in price.
And so I saw them failing pretty hard and getting kicked out of foreman's offices and everything else. And so I was like, So I just started rolling through construction sites, and I would be like, I'd see like, Jimmy over there in the corner, and I like sitting on the lunchbox. I'd be like, yo, hey man, you mind if I, pick your brain for a second? And be like, yeah, what's up? And I'd sit down with them. I'd be like, I see you're using the Makita drill over there, whatever it was, right? I'd be like, have you ever tried the DeWalt version of this? Well, no, I never tried it. I'm like, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to leave this with you. I'm going to leave this drill with you. Okay. You can have it. I want you to beat the shit out of this thing over the next week or so. And and if it's cool with you, I'll come back. I'll buy you lunch when I come back. And I just want to hear your feedback on it. Good, bad, or ugly. I just want to, and by the way, if you break this thing, I don't care. Okay.
Totally fine. Yeah.
So I'd come back a week later and the guy would be like, oh man, like this thing's killer. I don't, with the Makita, I get a blister here and it usually craps out after I use it. But this thing, I dropped off the roof. It still works and all this other stuff. Right. So I'd be like, okay, cool. So I'd do that 3, 4, 5 times with all these, construction dudes. And then I'd roll into the office to the foreman. I'd be like, hey, I've been chilling with Jimmy and Billy and over there and and they're telling me that Makita drill is giving them blisters. They crap out after about 100 use times. If they drop it off the thing, it falls off, right? You have to buy another one. And the DeWalt drill, they beat the shit out of this thing for the past week, man. And they love it because it's not giving them this. And they're actually more productive. And they've dropped it off the roof like 3 or 4 times and it still works. And the foreman would be like, what? I'd be like, yeah. So just out of curiosity, like, would you be open to, next time you're going for a purchase of these type of drills, would you be open to doing some, versions of the DeWalt drill? And they'd be like, absolutely. I'd be like, all right, cool. Now, thankfully, then I didn't really have a quota. So really all I had to do was recommend, you know what I mean? So I'd be like, all right, cool. Well, next time you go to Home Depot, just make sure you pick up a bunch of DeWalt instead of the Makita, right?
Yeah.
Then, after a few years, like, they turned into quotas and everything else, but I was part of the first team. But that's, again, design thinking, right? Learning what the usage of it is, and then bringing that hypothesis and your solution up to the executive with some knowledge. Same thing.
That time period that you're talking about there, where it was very much about the give and the demo and the proof of concept, show me that it works, prove to me I should invest in it, reminds me of Red Bull in Miami at the time. When Red Bull was really getting started and starting to become popular, they had those Red Bull trucks, the little
I know them well,
with the giant Red Bull cans on the top. And I mean, no kidding, they're like chucking Red Bull cans from just like lobbing them at people's faces in crowds. It was nuts.
Well, they did even better, right? Because we thought we were the cool kids, like with the DeWalt crew, right? Because we
can't throw drills and saws at people's heads,
right? No, but like we would be the cool kids during the day, right? But then we'd go out at night because we'd all be together. There were 7 of us that blanketed the whole, and we'd all get together. We go to dinner together, and then we go out at night and we go to the clubs. And guess who would roll into the clubs? The Red Bull crew, and talk about the cool kids on campus, man.
Man, everybody flocked to them.
People. So like to this day, like Red Bull and vodka, like I was hitting the club scene when Red Bull and vodka like first hit the scene. And so to this day, like I could smell Red Bull from about a mile away at this point. So
does it give you that feeling? Does it the nostalgic feeling?
A little bit.
But think about it from this perspective, right? It's a free product at the level that they're handing it out to you as a promotional situation. But it's actually one of the highest priced sodas on the market. You have a story about why that price is so high and what it does for people. So let's go with that. I love that story.
So that was marketing and this is sales. Like for them to give away all that stuff, that was marketing. That's not sales. They weren't asking people, what do you like about your soda can? And how can we give you more energy? And does coffee do this for you? And we have a better solution. They didn't do any of that. It was just, here's a bunch of Red Bull. So taste it.
You like it. You love it.
You love it. Right. But there's an interview, and Chris actually is the one who showed me this. There's an interview with the CEO of Red Bull, because right around the time, Red Bull was banging, and it was a smaller amount of ounces than a normal Coke can. And the interviewer said, "Hey, how come Red Bull's so expensive? Like you have less fluid ounces, and like a can of Coke is 50 cents, and you're selling yours for $2.50 or whatever it was."
Yeah.
And is it better? And she was and I think she prefaced it with, "Is it better ingredients? Are they more rare? Like what's going on?" And he stopped and he looked her dead in the eye and he goes, because she's like, "Why is it so expensive?" He goes, "How else would you know it was a premium product?"
There it is.
And I was like, damn. Because there is a weird perception, you know it as well as I do, that Lexus versus what is it, Toyota, they're the same car.
Same car.
For the most part. Okay. Why do you buy a Lexus?
Yeah.
Because the brand, because of the image. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, was it like, isn't it like something like 75% of brands of TVs have Samsung parts in it or something?
Yeah. So here's another one. DeWalt. You know that DeWalt, I don't know if it's still true. You know Craftsman, the Sears.
Craftsman. Oh yeah, Sears.
Right?
Yeah.
So those drills were the exact same drills as DeWalt with a few small, like with a few, maybe a few plastic gears versus the metal gears, but the chassis was the same. The whole inside, they actually contracted with DeWalt to make the exact same drill that was like 60% cheaper than the DeWalt version. But people
still the DeWalt version crushed it because
right?
the brand and
the perception.
Premium product.
Right. So that's why when people try to like go low cost provider, I'm like, that's why I ask people straight up when I'm selling them, like, what's the, your criteria when you're looking to make this decision? Where does price fall on the list? And if they say number one, I'm like, thank you very much for your time. I don't want to waste yours. I don't want to waste mine. We are not the cheapest solution out there, nor do we ever want to be. So if that's your priorities, good luck. Here's a couple of vendors that you can choose that'll have that cheap, because I don't want to be.
I've started defaulting to that too when they start talking about price, especially for like the group and providing things for the group, right? I'm like, yo, what we're talking about is money here. So let me know if that's the main thing. Because if that's the main thing, then there's probably other things you could do that'll save you money, right? If you want to invest in your team, then invest in your team. But if you're looking for like, I want to invest in my team, but I don't want to really invest in my team, I'm probably not for you.
Somebody, I forget who said this recently to me. Then I actually I forget who this is, but this is true. And I've always lived like this. It is way easier to make an extra $10,000 than it is to save $10,000. Think about it. If I were to tell you right now, James, say you're in a tough spot, right? You're, like you might have lost your job or something like that. And you're like, oh man, we got to save money right now. Right. So what are you going to do? You're going to go through your Netflix. You're going to go through all your subscriptions. You're going to stop that $15.99 a month and cancel that. And you might do this. And you're going to cobble together some way of nitpicking a way to save maybe $10,000. And all that time you spent trying to save that money, if you had focused on going to make $10,000, I guarantee you would have made it easier than trying to save that
faster. You would have made it faster for sure. Faster for sure. Even if it's not easy, because let's be honest, making $10,000 isn't easy for everybody, right? Some people figure it out and they do it and it happens for them. Other people they struggle to get. They don't understand the concept. I try to explain people the concept of what your time is worth.
That's easy. That's easy. So
let me hear it from you and I'll tell you what I tell people.
4-hour work week. Go get it. Tim Ferriss. All you got to do is pick a number of what you want to make throughout the year. All right. So say you want to make $200,000, $300,000, whatever that number is. And then figure out, okay, well, based on that, I probably have to work 50 hours a week or whatever the number is you're willing to work. Then just do the equation. So $300,000 divided by 50 weeks, divided by 50 hours a week, whatever that number is, that is your hourly rate. And the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week concept is that anything you can do, anything you can outsource to somebody else who can do it cheaper than that, do it so that you can spend more time doing that. So for instance, like I used to iron my shirts when I was coming out of college because I didn't want to go to the dry cleaner, right? But first of all, I suck at ironing. Second of all, I'd probably ruin a shirt or two. Third of all, it would take me hours to iron like 10 shirts or something like that, right? Or I could take them to the dry cleaner, a professional, for $1.50 and have them do them perfectly and get that hour and a half of my time back so I could focus on making more money. So it's just a different mentality.
I agree. We hired somebody to clean the house, not because we wanted someone to clean the house and we don't like cleaning the house. We did it every Saturday for years. But then we were like, we worked so hard and for so long during the week. Like, what if we had somebody that came in every other week and cleaned the house so that we would get our time back, buy your time back? So when I talk about what people's time is worth, I always try to get them thinking about like what they're passionate about. And then I attach a monetary value to the time they would spend consulting on that. So you say, what's your passion? And somebody might be like, well, I really like comic books. And you say, great. If you were to set up 5 1-hour sessions to consult comic book collectors about how to run their business better or create content about comics or whatever your expertise might be, and you charge $100 and you schedule 5 calls a day, that's like $130,000 a year, Monday through Friday, working 5 hours a day. So what's your time worth? Even if you cut that in half, you're $50 for the hour, you're still $70,000. If that's a side hustle, you're ripping it.
Well, and this is also where people mistake the value of their time, in the sense that there's this cool story about, like, there was this big disaster, and I'm going to murder this, but you'll get the point. There's this huge thing, like this plant was melting down, right? And everything was haywire, and they called this mechanic to come in, right, to fix the problem. And the guy comes in and he walks up to the thing and he turns a screw. It takes him literally 10 seconds, and he gives them a bill for $10,000. And they're like, What the shit? Like 10,000, dude, like it literally only took you 10 seconds to do that. He goes, yeah, I charged you $10 for that 10 seconds that it took me to do that. I charged you $9,990 for the 20 years it took me to know exactly what screw to turn to make it so that I could do that in 10 seconds.
That's good.
That's what, like, so when people talk to me about my hourly rate, I'm like, shut up. You don't know, you're not gonna, we're not getting into an hourly rate conversation. I got 25 years experience in sales. I can talk sales at upside down and sideways. That's what you're paying for. So I could charge you whatever the hell I want to charge you for my time, because I'm saving you all those years of mistakes that you would make to get to my point.
I think I saw Victor Antonio post something that said, it costs this much because it takes me hours. You heard that song? There's like a really catchy jingle. It costs that much because it takes me hours. If you haven't heard it, go look it up. Pretty funny. I'll send it to you. Yeah. Anyway, when you think about what you're purchasing, instant gratification is where your brain usually is, which is why people start asking about ROI. What they don't realize is that anything that you buy takes time to get something out of. Whether it's a car, whether it's services, a product, software, something that you've purchased to go fix something with, a DeWalt tool, right? You have to learn how to use it. You have to learn how to use it effectively. It takes time. Everything you ever cared about takes time. Instant gratification doesn't exist. It's a myth in our brain.
Yep. No, but unfortunately, too many people are looking for it. What's the silver bullet? We get it asked all the time. Hey, what's a template you guys got to go after? And I'm like, nope, don't have one. Don't want one. Right? You got to put in the work. Now, can you skip a few steps by learning from others who have been there before? Absolutely. But can you skip all the steps? Absolutely not. If you want to be successful, right? You can't, there ain't no shortcuts to success. I mean, like, I look at success like Chutes and Ladders, right? So, the game Chutes and Ladders?
I do.
You know how, like,
I think it's Snakes and Ladders or Snakes and Chutes now or something like that. They changed it. Yeah.
Whatever. I'm going old school with the Chutes and Ladders, right? So you roll the dice and you go color by color by color. And every once in a while you hit that ladder, right? And you go up and you're like, oh, cool. And then there's that huge ladder, right? But if I think about it, every time I used to play and I would hit that huge ass ladder, inevitably I would hit one of the ladders that would take me all the way down. I was like, damn it, right? So that was like a lesson for me of like, okay, slow and steady wins the race here. And yes, I can take a few small ladders up, but I'm never going to be able to skip all that experience that I need to be really effective in what I do.
I think we're conditioned to be unsatisfied. And I know we have 2 minutes left. I want to make sure you guys get the most out of this, but I think we're conditioned to be unsatisfied. Yeah. Like even at a young age, if you think about your kids, it's, hey, it's time to take a bath. I don't want to take a bath. Well, it's time to get out of the bath. I don't want to get out of the bath. We're having fun now, right? It's time to go to bed. I don't want to go to bed. But the next morning you're like, you got to get up for school. And they're like, let me sleep. Like we're conditioned to not be satisfied. And I think buyers are infected with this in ways that impact the way they interact with salespeople. And there's this like tension between these two parties because we haven't accepted the fact that we are so unsatisfied no matter what the outcome is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of tension for a lot of valid reasons, right? Buyers are liars, chicken and the egg, all that other stuff.
Buyers are liars. I've never heard that.
You haven't? No, I mean the debate on who lied to who first, right? Did the sales rep lie to the client first, or did the client lie to the sales rep first? I don't know, but there's a very untrusting relationship between clients and sales reps because most sales reps don't approach it the right way. They are trying to pitch, they are trying to sell something to you. I am trying to convince you because I have to hit my monthly target. I have to hit my you notice here, James, you know this, we don't have monthly quotas.
No,
we don't have monthly quotas here. Like the trainers, that's a year.
We sell to the people that need it.
Yep. And look, that's why pipeline's so important. That's why always be prospecting, right? Because you can put yourself in a position where you want the business, you don't need it, right? And when you put yourself in a position where you want the business and you don't need it, you sell the right way, right? When you need the business, you do some shady shit.
Well, there's a ton of value packed into this episode. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. This has been amazing. John, thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, brother.
See you guys next week when we bring you someone else to help you sell better. Survive sales one more week.
All right, everybody. Good luck out there.
See ya.